they look almost identical,
Mm-hmm.
except dry wet control on this one is 2 millimeters up, 2 millimeters, and the module does not pass our prototyping stage.
This was Girts Ozolins from Synths, and today I have the pleasure to share with you a recording I had with him when I just initiated an idea to design an online course for synth user experience design. It's a fascinating conversation. I had to edit a lot of the things because it was a bit confusing. It wasn't really designed to be released as a podcast. At the same time, I find it super insightful. There are a lot of different examples that he's discussing and showing and revealing their approach to designing new instruments. So without further ado, Girts Ozolins from Synths.
It's pretty easy to build initial prototype which looks nice and which kind of works, but when you start digging in all functions and what it actually has to do, and maybe our initial ideas were not so good, and with experience we accumulated, we can make it much better now.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it takes a year or even two to complete the project we actually showed like long
Mm-hmm.
time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore we do not reveal our projects, and we rather go in a way that we actually start any development only if we see that we can do something radically different, create something which is not existent,
Mm-hmm.
or we can do something radically better.
Mm-hmm.
Or take Black Sequencer,
Mm-hmm.
which was like major project for us during last year. Um, we thought that there are like plenty of sequencers, and I personally built at least 4 or 5 of them as DIY projects, and then we swapped some instruments with other manufacturers. So we have like 6 different sequencers in our office. But our like ultimate benchmark, our ultimate benchmark is, how easy and how fun is to play it, and how gratifying is to play the instrument. So no sequencer gave us this instant gratification that yes, that's an instrument for me, and therefore we started that project, for instance.
So this project started with some research into what's existing.
Basically, yes, and also, we have quite a range of modules and instruments here in our lineup,
Mm-hmm.
and then we also approach the market by means of what is missing in our lineup, because sometimes you just want to have some complete ideal system,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore. Even though sometimes we do not see that the module or instrument will perform like spectacularly, but still it's missing in our module lineup, and therefore we need to make it. Like which was a case with a joystick,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it does very well at the moment, and we just launched it actually. Uh, the thing is that we felt that Eurorack is too algorithm driven. You pre-patch it, you program sequences, and then you just tweak knobs, change cutoff, change waveforms, for instance, and tweak a mixer, so you fade in different things,
Mm-hmm.
and and there is if you check on YouTube, most of techno live streams or electronic music live streams, there is actually very little interaction between musician and the instrument. So basically, it's limited to tweaking some knobs.
Yeah.
And and one way of interaction is keyboard, of course, and other way of interaction is playing sequencer live, for instance. But still, playing sequencer live, it's entering notes mechanically, and therefore we thought that, well, a joystick would give another level of physical interaction between musician and a modular synthesizer. So and therefore you have like another level of making performance more interesting,
Yeah.
both for yourself and both for audience, because audience, and how you can stand out nowadays when everybody streams, when there are possibly in future, when clubs will open,
Hmm.
people will go crazy to clubs. So basically the question is actually for musician as well, how do I actually stand out? Do I use some external instrument? How I make my performance more interesting? Like uh, there is Australian guy Ankle Pants, for instance. He performs naked with a mask of a huge dick, hanging from his from his nose. So this makes him stand out.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Pedro Estage, for instance, a good friend of ours. He performs on modular, but his main instrument is actually wind instrument. So he has wind controller from 70s, which is a dedicated wind controller for modular synthesizers, for instance. So this is how those persons can stand out. So,
Yeah.
and this is where we start our design thinking of what it actually will change in industry, and how it will add to our lineup of modules.
So there's a clear need. There's a definition of a target audience, and it's not just an electronic musician, but it's like really someone specific that you have in mind when you're starting, or like a group of
Yeah,
people that has a specific.
not necessarily. Like sometimes you just do thing and feel that people will just navigate to it.
Hmm.
Because yeah, because the greatest inventions in history, they initially were just rejected by mainstream, because you never ask mainstream what would you like to have, because most probable answer will be maybe updated version of something what they know. But
Like the story
what
with the horse. Yeah.
yeah,
With a black face plates.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And for instance, when they started steam trains, there was conventional wisdom that a person would disintegrate if it would move with 30 kilometers per hour. 30 kilometers per hour, it's enough for an live person to disintegrate. Or those stories about how electricity was launched, that you can fry up your children, and then there was lobbies from gas supply companies, and then there was this current wars, DC current versus AC current, and so people actually are very uh, conservative about some new things, but when they come out, some innovators try them, and you can really change the thing. Like, uh, yeah, that's also a challenge for an engineer. Actually, uh, who said this? I guess it was um, the challenge for engineer is actually not to technically make thing, but to actually figure out what to invent.
Yeah.
And
What to
that's
invent?
for yeah, that's for inventor. And um, and then you can have a factory of engineers who actually make this invention happen.
Yeah.
And um,
Yeah, I find it really hard with students, because a lot of times they would just want to create something, but it almost feels like there is no context to it. At least the way I see it, there is a very fine line between you're making something completely for yourself and you disregard anyone around you, than to make something for yourself, but then keeping in mind this could be used by this group of people. It's not completely detached from the world. It just does not exist yet. So you are taking a leap of faith and you believe in what you're aiming for. Um, it's a way that an innovator finds this balance between I'm making something completely for myself, or I'm making something that I make for myself, but a lot of people are probably going to like this. I really believe
Yeah,
this particular.
and with experience, your internal faith, or what you believe in,
Compass.
it actually you hit targets more often and often, as you
Yeah.
get more experience. Like, for instance, that was a great example with Thomas Edison, for instance, because he figured out what to invent, and then he had and he was actually first who industrialized inventions. So he had factory of inventors that worked solely of turning his ideas into actual products.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some creative workshop with my students, um, and I showed them one of pictures of Thomas Edison's invention, which I asked them to guess what it is. And of course, most failed, because I actually made a 10 euros prize for guessing, because I was quite convinced that nobody will guess. Thomas Edison invented, for instance, tattoo machine, electronic tattooing machine, and that's, out of hundreds, or how he had over 1,000 patents,
Mm-hmm.
and out of those 1,000 patents, he just comes across need for electrical tattooing machine,
Yeah,
which he invents.
that is such
And
a specific thing. Exactly, like
yeah,
exactly at the
exactly.
same time. Yeah.
But his feeling of what is necessary was tailored at such a high degree that he really knew, and he precisely found people who navigated to his invention.
Yeah. 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 Would you
So
say,
yeah,
would,
sorry.
would you say that there is a connection between user experience, so intuitiveness, and the way that something plays, and how um, how to market it, how to actually get it to the right people? Is there a
Yeah.
thinking at the beginning of the process where like you're experimenting with the electronics, you're experimenting with the controllers, and you're thinking, how would I, like, what would be the story that I'm telling people when I share this with them and say, this is really cool, you should really have this?
No, we always start with user interface. So we always draw the SketchUp of the thing, and electronics is just next thing. There are engineers who do other way around, so they have idea about what schematics could look like, or maybe some, like Jan Fritz, for instance, one of most genius engineers and inventors in electronics, and also in music electronics. He has the most unconventional designs, actually, and he starts from what he knows from electronically,
Mm-hmm.
and what he can change, in that way. We always start with user experience and user interface, because when you have over 300 Eurorack manufacturers, and you have like monster players in synthesizer market, where you, like, healthy-minded person would not enter that market, because Yamaha and Roland and Korg, they have base, and Behringer with
Behringer.
their pricing strategy.
Yeah.
So why would one make some new synthesizer? Because all so, but still there are significant gaps, because for musician an instrument is thing which he enjoys playing, because it's his, like, main thing he does, and also it's a way how he makes money. So
Hmm.
he wants the ultimate
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And therefore, I personally very I spent 20 years in advertising, and I can instantly identify what's wrong with things.
With
Uh,
things, with things
you
like,
know, in whatever category, you know, you can get a tea boiler, electrical tea boiler, which is produced in millions of copies. And when you pour the water into a cup, it pours everywhere but in a cup, because nobody just hasn't tested it.
yeah,
And and then, like, you have a mouse, for instance, which is a remote mouse, and you have to turn it off in order to save battery. But
mhm,
this particular one, I'm creatively envious about them. They made a mouse which folds like this, so it automatically it's easier to transport, and it disconnects a circuit when it's in off mode. And then when you
beautiful.
want to operate it, you just fold it in a normal mouse shape.
That
And
is
this is
super
so
clever.
amazing. Yeah, and this is so amazing, and that's so extremely great user experience that I really admire a person who figured this out.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it actually disconnects the battery, but if I would make the mouse,
It,
I would disconnect the battery in this position, in transport position, so to save a battery as well. So therefore, we always start with user interface, and we draw the interface. We really think in detail, you know, how the module will work and how a person will interact with it, and then we just start working on schematics. And then we can figure out, you know, who would be the best person to draw schematics, because we have our in-house designer, and we have outsourced engineers, several ones who are like extremely good on analog circuits and so on and so on. So yeah,
so,
we no
so if I'm deconstructing what you said, you start with research to understand what's actually needed. Then you go to the user experience and the user interface, and then from
yeah,
there you go into the electronics.
exactly. Yeah,
And
that's
just a side question there that I'm really curious. Do you have any sketches that you could share, like paper sketches or digital? Like how do sketches look like? Erica Sin sketches.
they are first they are on paper, and then a friend of mine who designed like basic designs of our product lines, like Black Series, for instance, with this with the jellyfish and so on,
Hmm.
how knobs and controls look like. So we pass our sketches to her. She designs if the module requires like larger, if it has more advanced interface. So she designs it on in in designing software, but not 3D, just visual one. Or other way that, for instance, for this particular module, uh, she was involved only when the faceplate was ready already. Our PCB designer, he just comes up with the layout, because we explain, you know, how controls. I sent him hand drawn sketch. I explain how controls should be laid out. And as we have lines of modules, so he knows distances between potentiometers, distances between um, sockets, and so on. And he comes up with layout of the potential module. Then we send it to factory who makes front panels, and then we build a prototype and test how it works. For
But
instance, this is yeah.
so the electronics, the faceplate is actually being manufactured before the electronics are.
That happens simultaneously,
Okay.
because when we start drawing PCB, then electronics is already in process. But
Mhm.
we know exactly what controls the module will have. So yeah, in
And
this hand-drawn sketch, we have a precise idea of the layout of the module.
and this layout, would it be tested with internally or externally? Would you get like, are you working with any beta testers?
When the module is ready, like prototype is ready, then we send out it to some person. But we have a privilege to have a very diverse mm, kinds of persons here with different backgrounds. For instance, my business partner Kodak, he's also a genius musician, and he give him any instrument and he can get very great sounds out of it in minutes, literally,
Hmm.
without reading user manual.
Hmm.
And if user manual is required for him, then the instrument is poorly built because it's not intuitive enough. So same goes with our instruments. So we come up with a prototype. We of course discussed it before, but then when you start playing it, something is wrong. So you need to redesign it in such a tiny details that, for instance, this one is final instrument module from the factory. We are about to announce it in uh, in a week or so,
Hmm.
and this is initial prototype. They look almost identical,
Hmm.
except dry wet control on this one is 2 millimeters up, which is not visible. But when you start turning knob, your finger gets to neighboring controls, which is not acceptable when you want to play the instrument. And no 3D visualization software would show you this tiny detail. 2 millimeters, and the module does not pass our prototyping stage. This one almost identical, but there is no problem with turning this knob, which is wet drying. So we always invest into making a hardware prototype rather than making fancy 3D designs and publishing them on forums, because people nowadays they are spoiled by news, by need for another great module. and so and of course, if you ask them, would you like it like being realized in real life, of course, just go ahead, and hundreds of people would encourage you to do that. But when it comes to actual purchase, then again you can have, like we have had quite bad experiences with some collaboration projects where it feels that hundreds of people are asking for this, but in reality something is wrong there.
Yeah.
Mm.
So to avoid that, you make these prototypes, and you, if I understand it correctly, you're basically testing them internally because you have enough diversity
Yeah,
of.
we're testing both internally, and of course we have friends around. We have ones who make demos for modules. Not only we make internal demos, but when we send to Quintus Moreira, for instance, Synth DIY guy, to Mexico, or to Molten Modular, or to Loopop, and Ricky Tines, for instance.
Mhm.
And we have a whole bunch of partners, people who are interested in our designs, who test them in real life. But of course, first test is our internal one, and the um, major questions is that, is it intuitive? Can you play it without reading a manual? And are all controls in place? So if it's like logically laid out, is it easy to play, is it fun to play, and how it adds to your current experience with other products. Because,
Yeah.
again, you come to Stom boxes or to groove boxes or to baseline modules, instruments, and there are plenty of those. So
Mm-hmm.
and the question is how to really make a difference. And you can make difference sound wise, but that's kind of very tricky one.
Yeah, it's very
uh,
nuanced. Yeah.
yeah, it's very nuanced, but you can really make a difference on feeling of playing the module.
Yeah. Do can you recall a memory of like a real failure? Maybe not lately, but like years ago when you just started, that you released something that you felt like, yeah, if we would do more research before this, we would actually have, like, we could actually avoid this failure.
um, First Fusion series modules, which were absolutely innovative in Eurorack because they were first modules with vacuum tubes. But
And they're stunning
technically,
looking as well.
yeah. But technically, the build quality was, I would say, not there because we did not have experience on industrial manufacturing, like manufacturing on industrial scale, because these were like one of first modules from which were our like factory manufactured modules, and therefore there were like plenty of nuances which I would not make, or mistakes which I would not make today, because today we have, and back then we had no one to ask, what's the best thing to do that. We just made, when we started company, we started with those DIY projects which are comparably easy, and you just make faceplate and make PCB, and they basically work. But when you need to make module which is assembled on pick and place machine, and so that was technical failure.
Mhm.
But marketing failures, sure, they happen. And sometimes, as I told, sometimes we make a module not because it will sell a lot, but because we need it to complete a system.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Like there are some utility modules which will not sell in hundreds,
Hmm.
like, let's say in thousands. And some modules are just selling for one run of 200 modules. They're selling for a couple of years. But still, we are making them because we need them in a system.
Yeah.
We have, yeah, I recall we have quite a module which did not meet expectations. That was a dual VCF with a spectrometer on top, and like,
The one there?
yes, yes.
Be careful
It's
talking bad things about
no,
it. It's my
it's
favorite
technically
thing.
great. It's technically great. It sounds good. It has nice interface. It has stereo possibilities. You can link channels and stuff, but it doesn't sell. We sell it out now for half a price, and we have like huge pile of those modules in
Mm.
stock still. Something was wrong there, and
And you
it's
can't really put your finger on it.
um, maybe footprint was too large, or but this spectrometer is nice, and and everything works well. Yeah,
Interesting.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I honestly, that's a module where I cannot identify where we failed.
Yeah. That's
um,
it's a surprise for me as well. Yeah.
mm,
Because also, I mean, I'm thinking about other modules that are similar to this. There are different modules with a bit of a different functionality, and it's kind of like Yeah, it's one of the things that I use the most on my case. It's really in the center, in the middle, like above,
Mm,
at the top, in the middle,
mm.
next to the Befaco VCA VCO. Um, yeah, okay, but
But
that's really.
other, yeah,
Hmm?
yeah. Now, I mean, maybe all other thing which in which we are a bit failing is that we are so passionate about new releases, and each new module is kind of our new baby, and it's even better, and it it even more stands out in the market, and we release so many things that we can not technically we cannot treat every instrument well enough in long term.
Yeah.
Yes. If you count all our new instruments released over the year, it's almost an instrument per week, roughly. Like, no, let's say instrument per 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Everyone needs some media attention, some media space. Everyone needs some marketing investment. At least we need to talk about it.
Mhm.
But this dual VCF, yes, we made demo, we did everything right, but it possibly vanished in our flow of other instruments where we possibly put more focus on, or maybe they were more distinctive,
Mhm.
more innovative. Because honestly, uh, the most innovative thing about this dual VCF, it's this spectrometer,
Mhm.
and which really makes it stand out.
Yeah, it looks really awesome when it's moving. Definitely.
Mm. And
Uh,
and it makes sense. It actually shows where the cutoff is and where the resonance is. So
yeah,
it's not only
it's not just fancy
only
lights. No, it has meaning back.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so what I'm curious about again is testing, collaborating with musicians to really figure out different features. So it's inevitable to talk about the collaboration with Matt Black and Ninja
Ninja
Tune.
Tune.
Like, what kind of feedback is being back and forth between the different creatives in this process?
Mm. That was both tricky projects and also a very interesting one, because there were actually three parties involved. That was Matt from Ninja Tunes and Ingmar from Liquid Sky Berlin. Back
Mm,
then, now it's Liquid Sky Portugal. So Ingmar introduced us with Matt, and that happened in a club actually. Uh,
as it should be with Matt Black.
yeah, he DJ'd there, and I guess I was performing, or someone from us from our company was performing. So we met there, and we discussed possible collaboration. And when the process started, you know, when we do when we create an instrument on our own, it's easy because we can have like our specific opinion on things, and we know what works and what not. And so when more parties are involved, everybody wants to add some features, and they are like great musicians, and they have huge experience in both live performances, DJing, and collaborations with musicians. And so um, as Napoleon said that the essence of strategy is sacrifice.
Mhm.
And that's this philosophy we also follow when we develop new instruments or new designs, that you can have all possible features implemented, but a musician can get lost there. So the thing is that how we do, actually, we put all ideas in a pot, and then we start to distill the most distinctive features, most needed features, and and also we of course take in account what's present in market and how we can stand out. And so we agreed that we need a very good delay thing combined with a filter and vacuum tube distortion, because Ingmar was very excited about our fusion project, fusion line. So and of course there are like plenty of possibilities how you can what controls you can introduce in this, what you can add or subtract there. So but yes, we followed this idea about sacrifice, and we came up with several attempts. We came up with current design, and uh, and it's really successful project.
Yeah, I can
It's
imagine.
yeah,
Just hearing this combination of like a tube distortion with a filter and a really good delay is like
yeah, yeah.
very
And
exciting
that
for
was
anyone who's
also very
using.
challenging for us because we developed our own DSP board for delays, and we developed our delay algorithms. And there are guys who were developing delays since late 80s. When
Mhm.
first digital delays appeared. So we had zero experience in the in
Mm.
delay algorithms, and we kind of argued, can we actually take this project, because of reason that we do not have, let's say, much experience in delays. but yes, we spent half a year um, just researching that. So we had outsourced engineer who worked exclusively on those delay algorithms, and he's really good at paying attention to detail and taking challenges. Nobody, he never actually like that was completely new area for him. So, but yes, everything came together in perfect kind of ways, and everything worked well.
So if we're talking about the timeline for a project like this is half a year that you give someone else to develop the algorithm for this, but at the same time there are two parts of this circuit that you guys excel in. So that's the amplifier, the distortion, and or like saturation circuit, and the filter. Um,
Yeah,
and I'm assuming also here you started first of all with a drawing of the sketch of how this thing would look like.
yeah, exactly.
Is this then being sent to the other creatives for them to give you feedback on?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we were all the time in loop with Ninja Tunes and Liquid Sky to to check every step of development, and so yeah, everybody was involved. And as soon we had some sounding prototypes, and then of course they were first who checked that, and then so. And of course, there were a lot of nuances that, for instance, the first prototype, it had tiny buttons. We have bypass and top button, for instance.
Hmm.
They did not look good, so we found replacements and yeah, to make it. This was really a project where we had at least 4 physical prototypes, which we played with, not only looked at.
Yeah, and then these were sent and then tested by different people, getting feedback and then making
Yeah,
changes.
yeah. Mhm.
And were there also, except of the aesthetics, were there also changes in terms of the
Not
ergonomics?
much, not much,
No.
because we are very good at ergonomics, and so, and also aesthetics were changed. There were very slight changes.
Mm.
Because a friend of mine, she runs a company Black 8. She specializes in packaging design, and yeah, she does all our product design as well. So um, we are like very good at how interface is laid out and how it looks like. So there was minor changes there.
Yeah. So, but then why is there a need for 4 different prototypes if the changes are so small?
But as I told, electronically, prototypes did not work as expected. So we had to change. Actually, the appearance of Zen delay initial prototype and last one was approximately like this. There were like nuances,
Mm-hmm.
but that was on electronical part. So filter was not there. Then deal we redesigned this DSP board several times and so on.
That's
And technically, sometimes you came up with excellent um, case, but there are 2 PCBs inside, and it appears that you cannot, for instance, one of our products, when we assembled it, it appeared that we cannot upload the firmware because firmware connector is behind the connector board, and you have to remove connector board, and then you can get to firmware upload connector, and of course that does not work for industrial manufacturing.
no, of
So
course.
there are tiny nuances which, like a friend of mine, he said that uh, good not mistakes good mistakes do not reveal them so easy, they're well
Good
hidden.
mistakes are real. Yeah, that's actually a beautiful thing, a beautiful way of looking at things, or I guess an experienced way of looking at things, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's something that you discover, like the nuance, the nuances in design. It can be very hard to find until the point that you've been doing it for so many years that you just see it, and someone else won't see that these 2 millimeters. They will be like, yeah, whatever, just
yeah.
move your fingers a bit differently and it'll be
Mm,
fine. But then you
but
look
that's
at it,
annoying. That's super annoying.
and that's annoying. That is, yeah, that is the designer in you. Yeah, I think this was super valuable. This conversation. There's so many little nuggets of information here that I think are amazing for the course that I'm trying to work on. So thank you so much for this. Yeah,
Thank you. Actually, I have a dentist appointment
like now,
in
yeah,
10
we
minutes.
were like, yeah, we